Hey everyone. So I have some really big news that I just found out today that I want to share with you guys. I have been like jittery all evening just because I am so stoked about this information that I got. And that is regarding my medical records appeal. So I received a response back. I actually didn't realize it. I had gone into my patient portal because I have an appointment coming up tomorrow, and I had a note that I had a message. And in addition to the appointment that I have tomorrow, I had been going back and forth with my neuromuscular specialist who diagnosed me with FND, just because we've been going back and forth about like FND resources, but also he's been kind of directing me as I shared information about the genetic mutations that are the VUSs that I described in one of the previous videos. So I actually received a response back from him regarding my appeal, and I was just blown away. So I'm super excited to share that. And for context, that medical appeal, I had noticed that there had been just some like misinformation in my medical records in general, just like small things like it was written in my records that I was right-handed. I'm actually left-handed. I don't even remember being asked which hand I write with. Like my name was wrong in a place, and it wasn't like another person. It was just like a misspelling, I think, of my name. And so there were tiny things like that, but I was writing the appeal to see if I could have functional neurological disorder removed from my medical records completely. And just so that you understand my understanding of the process, I don't know actually if you can have anything completely removed from your medical records. If you are a healthcare practitioner and you know for sure, please comment. I'm really interested to hear that. So I figured my rationale was kind of like, well, even if I don't have functional neurological disorder removed from my medical records, then the information that I compiled in this appeal, and it was about 12 pages long, because in it I included the small edits that needed to be in my medical records, but also I included I'm referencing back so that I can kind of share with you guys in case this is helpful to anybody else. I included the understanding that I have of what my diagnosis for functional neurological disorder was based on. And then I provided the rationale of why I believe that is not a logical diagnosis based on my symptoms. And I also provided the additional context that there was information that I didn't get to share during that appointment with the neuromuscular specialist. And there was also additional information that I discovered from family members that experience muscle weakness, that I also included in that appeal. And I was trying to be careful because the neuromuscular specialist that I saw was great. He's very supportive, very patient, a great listener. Like, I was like bawling towards the end of the appointment. I'm pretty sure that was like partly out of frustration, partly out of confusion, and also because I was getting hungry, because it was like an hour and a half long appointment. And that's why I think like this neuromuscular specialist is fantastic. He really does take the time. I just understand that there's limitations on both sides, and there's, communication issues on both sides on my side too. So I addressed those in the appeal, and see if there's anything that I'm leaving out. So yeah, I included like the diagnostic criteria for periodic paralysis, and I included source links to the Periodic Paralysis Association, to Periodic Paralysis International, and also like from the review of what was it called? It's like a 2017 medical journal article. Let me get this title right. Review of the diagnosis and treatment of periodic paralysis, and I believe it was published in 2017. And so this is like the current diagnostic criteria for periodic paralysis, and it also goes into detail about some of the nuances of the types of weakness in periodic paralysis, which I think is important because I think I could have Anderson-to-Will syndrome because my weakness is not as extreme, from what I've heard from others, as somebody would say, like hypokalemic periodic paralysis. So I thought that was like a really helpful nuance to understand. So I included resources like that, and that's, I think, partly why it ended up being so long. I also included like times in my medical records where it's charted that my potassium was below the what do you call that? The parameters in the lab work, which I believe the normal for potassium is considered 3.5 to 5.2, and I was 3.4 at one point, and I don't know that I was even having symptoms then, but I do know from using my Hariba potassium meter that if I'm at 3.8, I am having symptoms, and they're usually significant. So I also included like other times that I have used my Hariba potassium where it seemed that my levels were high. So that's controversial. We don't know the accuracy of those meters very well, and you have to calibrate it every single time you use it. So it's fallible. And is also just, if you are considering whether you might have periodic paralysis, it's good to know that even if your potassium doesn't seem to be fluctuating, and when you're measuring it, whether that's in a hospital or with your own kind of device, that you can still have periodic paralysis. And the reason that researchers believe this is the case is because the shift in potassium is happening intracellularly. I think that's how you would describe that. So it might not show up in the blood work, but that shift in the body is causing the symptoms of weakness, or for some people, like it causes like muscle cramps, like intense muscle cramps, or myotonia. There can be kind of other more accessory symptoms that happen with it as well. So there was a lot of information that I included there, and my thought with that was just kind of like, even if I don't end up having periodic paralysis, at least like I'm providing information that is beyond my own like knowledge base. It's coming from experts in the field, and I think that that's helpful even for like other medical providers to know. And so like my hope with this kind of thing is, even if I'm wrong, at least maybe it'll help somebody down the line who maybe they have periodic paralysis, and even if I misdiagnose myself, then at least the doctor will be aware of the information, the resources they have to understand that condition and what to look for to kind of help patients navigate that. So that was my mindset going into this appeal. I wasn't sure what would happen. I will go ahead and share what was written in my records in response to this appeal. And this is from the neuromuscular specialist. I'm not going to name names, just for the sake of privacy and to respect the doctors involved. But it starts out, this is an outpatient summary for me. I did not speak to the patient directly today. She has provided additional information to supplement that which was obtained at the initial neuromuscular consultation encounter. This information is provided in the form of a 33-page document. Now, a lot of that was my medical records that just needed tiny like corrections to, and some of it was like what needed to be corrected, like even in the FND diagnosis clinical notes. Okay, sorry. This information is provided in the form of a 33-page document and has been scanned into her medical record in the Media Viewer or Documents Viewer tab. I direct the reader of this note to that document for further information, which I think it's fantastic that this is going to be in my medical record, because now I feel more at ease that it's documented, you know. In summary, Mrs. me, provides additional information that she disagrees with the diagnosis of functional neurological disorder and would like to have it removed from her medical record in order to avoid bias with respect to her medical care. I cannot retrospectively change my opinion formed at the time of our initial encounter, which was based on the DSM-5 criteria for functional neurological disorders. However, I do understand the unfortunate truth that this diagnosis may bias other healthcare providers, and I am sympathetic to that. I have added a postscript addendum which clarifies that the presence of functional neurologic disorder does not exclude the possibility of other organic neurologic disorders or non-neurologic disorders, which is a tenet of the DSM-5 on this subject. And this is the fantastic part. The patient has also provided additional information in her 33-page document, which raises the possibility of the presence of a periodic paralysis syndrome. And thus today, I have documented that a possible diagnosis I have documented that as a possible diagnosis and made referral to my colleagues in clinical genomics to consider whether additional testing into this matter may be useful. And I am just freaking super excited. Sorry, you guys, I know it's getting dark out. It's kind of like ghost story time in the car. But I am so excited that he's considering this a possible diagnosis now. And it took a lot of work and it took a lot of documentation and just going through my notes and thinking through like my understanding of why I believe this. And I am just so excited. And he even put like at the very end, like his impressions now are number 1, muscle weakness, which is why I was there, and number 2, possible periodic paralysis. So I am super excited. If you feel like you have gotten a misdiagnosis, I would recommend submitting a medical appeal. And the way that I did it was I went to the hospital's website and they had a specific web page for making appeals, and it had specific guidelines. So I followed that, and then I included all of the information that I wanted to include and submitted that in. And they have, by law, they have to respond within 2 months. And so you date the document and they have to respond within that date. And so I don't know that I will receive anything additional from this. I know I had received an email saying that they had received it and that I would receive a response. So this might be the extent of my response, but I am very excited that I get to talk to somebody else experienced in genetics and genomics. I'm still learning the difference between those, but I'm really excited to get their take on it and their suggestions. I know that not all of the mutations for periodic paralysis have been discovered yet. I think that there is still one mutation that has been found, at least, that I haven't been tested for, just because that wasn't included in the Invitae genetic testing panel. So that's something I might ask about. But I know that there is the possibility that genetic testing, now it's super dark, let me turn this light back on. Ooh, or not. Okay, I didn't think those would go out. Well, it is ghost story time. Let's see. I'm just gonna turn the car on, y'all. My apologies. Where are the keys? Turn on the AC too. Okay, sorry about that, y'all. So I know that genetic testing still might not provide a definitive answer, but I think that, like, especially going into my appointment in June to the specialist in periodic paralysis, especially if she doesn't have a strong knowledge of functional neurological disorder, this could be really helpful, because this gentleman who did diagnose me with functional neurological disorder does have a strong knowledge of that condition. So I think that that's going to be helpful. And I'm also really relieved because I feel like if I go to the ER again and I'm having difficulty breathing, or if I'm having muscle weakness of any kind, that I'm not just going to get completely blown off as it being like something psychological, which FND is not psychological, actually. It is a neurological condition, but a lot of doctors don't understand that. If you want to learn more about that, check out my videos in the muscle weakness section and check out the videos about FND and periodic paralysis. BP is what it's labeled in the subject title. I lost my train of thought there. It's coming back. Yeah, so if I end up in the ER or I'm having another doctor try to dismiss the symptoms as all being FND, I feel like I have better backing and better support now. So I'm really, really grateful. This gentleman has been so receptive to me coming back and having questions, and he's been very supportive, and I'm very appreciative of that. So if you would like to learn more about either muscle weakness, or if you would like to learn more about communications with doctors, I'll include those cards at the end of this video. Thanks for listening, and I will see you guys in another video. Bye.